Hello again and welcome to another series of Your Raw, and in this series I'm going to be doing one of my own images, and the reason why I'm doing one of my own images is because you've requested me to do and show you how I process this image, and it's an image of Osea beach huts. So I did do a video a short while ago on Pinmill and how I process that, and it's a similar process to that, but I'm just going to show you how I did the Osea beach huts and make it into a fine art image. So this is the image we're going to work on. It's quite a difficult image. It's probably the hardest one, the images that I had to process, mainly because we've got to get rid of all this foreground here, which is quite difficult, and we've got to work on these little areas here. But the first thing I'm going to do is do a couple of adjustments before we start on that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to up the DAs because I know there's a lot of dust spots on, and I'm just going to get rid of the dust spots, and that's because we shoot Sony. Okay, so that's pretty much all the things we're going to remove in Lightroom. We'll just drop the DAs back down, double click on DAs, double click on any of the areas, elements that you use in DAs, clarity, whatever. You double click on the actual word itself, it resets it. So one thing I need to do is to brighten this murky water up a little bit and give it a bit of a more of a bluey feel to it. Now I could do this towards the end, but I think I'm going to do it now. So what I'm going to do is, sorry, I've already upped the let me put it back to how it was actually. So that was the image how it was. So I've upped the shadows, it's brightening that foreground, and I've dropped the highlights to bring the sky. I want the exposure very similar from sky to water, and in hindsight maybe I could have took a longer exposure, could have actually helped the image. This was a 30-second exposure, I think. Yes, 30 seconds, so a minute might have helped a little bit just to smooth that water off even more. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the brush tool, and sorry, not a brush tool, I'm going to select a colour range, and I'm going to select this brown murky water, which is selected most of it. I'm going to refine it slightly, so I'm going to drop that down, and then if I click on subtract, select a brush, and then this will subtract from that mask, because I don't want to take any of this away. I don't want to really change any of the beach hut area, so I'm just painting that back out, so it's not as aggressive there. There we go, that should be okay. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to up the temperature, make it bluer, something like that, not too blue, and I'm going to drop the exposure. And again, what I'm trying to create is a similar colour match from sky to the sea, maybe there. So that's the image ready now for a bit of processing in Photoshop. So if we right click, edit in Photoshop, and off we go. So we've got the image in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is duplicate the image. The next thing I'm going to do is create a sky layer. So it's going to be something as simple as go up to select sky. I'm going to use this as my background. So it's selected the sky, and I'm just going to copy that, make a new layer, and paste. Now I've got if I turn them two off, I've got a sky layer. but I'm going to do a little bit more to this. So what I'm going to do is select the lasso tool, and we'll select the non-sky area, right click, and we'll content aware fill. That should fill it in pretty decent. It's gone a bit haywire here. So one thing you can do, the green area, it's what it's using to replace the area that we want, and it's not using enough sky. So if we go on the plus rather than the minus, we can select more of that sky. And what that does, it gives it more sky to use to replace the non-sky area. So it's done that. I'm quite happy with that, that's fine. It's just going to make it easier to process shortly. So that's my sky layer now. Deselect, that's the sky layer. That's the layer underneath. That's the main layer we're going to work on, and that's the sky layer. So the next thing I want to do is, we'll turn that one off as well. I'm going to make another layer selecting the subject. So if we just go into select subject, and what that will hopefully do is select most of the beach huts. It's actually done a real good job of selecting the beach huts. We don't want that area there, so I'm just gonna, if we go into the quick select tool, click on minus, and if we just go over that area, it will remove that from the selection. That is a pretty good selection. We'll add a little bit here that it's deselected. There. Okay, I'll fill that bit in as well. So that's selected quite a nice area of the beach huts. There we go. And then we're going to do the same as the sky. We're going to copy, make a new layer, and paste. So now we've got a sky layer and a subject layer. Now if we put the subject layer above the sky, we now have the subjects floating in the sky. What that's actually helped us do is select round the beach huts. We've still got to do some work in these areas, which are quite tricky down below here and that, but in general they're the two layers we can use. Right, so the next thing I want to do is try and remove, we'll go back onto the base layer, and we're going to try and remove things that we don't necessarily want in the image. And I'm just going to use a spot heal tool, and I'm going to see what I can remove with that as much as possible, because the hard part of this is I need as much water as I possibly can to fill this area in. So if I can get rid of these areas here, and hopefully it'll fill it with water rather than grasses, when I use that selection it can actually use that detail then. Okay, so we'll get rid of these little bits as well, might as well, it will help eventually. Get rid of that there. Now to get rid of the rest of it, I think what we're going to have to do is select round the rest. So if we go to lasso tool, I want to use as much as this water as possible to fill this in. So if I go tight here, we'll go right tight to the building as much as we can. I want to keep that water there to use all round there. so really quite tight to the grassy area. Right click, content aware. So what it's actually using is, again, it's using all that green detail to fill it in. But what I don't want it to do is use the beach huts. So we'll remove that. So it can't use them areas to select. I mean, it's done a pretty decent job, to be honest. Okay, so it's filled that area in for us. Click OK. That is pretty good, to be honest. I'm quite pleased with how that's selected. So we'll deselect. So that's as image before we've even added the sky that we can add to it and things like that. So what I'm going to do, we'll select I'll just turn these off to show you. So I'm going to select that layer, which is the foreground layer. We'll select the sky, but I'm going to drop that foreground layer below the sky, and I'm going to also switch on the main background layer. What I'm going to do is go to the sky, and we'll go add a layer mask, select the brush tool, and we're just going to paint, bring back the beach huts, like so. So that's brought back that area there. Shouldn't actually change too much. What that layer's doing, what this layer's doing here, is just helping us select over the detail area, the roof and things like that. That's the only area we're interested in, really, is that area there. So that's what's helping us just bring that all back in quite simply. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one there. So we're not going to waste any time selecting them roofs, because we've already selected it, like so. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of, I want that sky reflection, I want the water as if it's reflected the sky, but I don't want it as detailed. So what I'm going to do is actually drop the opacity quite low, and I'm just going to try and blend that in a little bit, so we start to bring them shadows out a little bit. And it is a little bit of what you're looking for. This really is a personal preference, but we can already see how the image is developing. The trickiest part really is, okay, we'll do that. I'm going to just go onto that layer again, and I'm just going to remove some little artifacts here because they're coming through. So there's that one there, that bit there. I'm happy with that. We'll just remove that best we can. Just make life a little bit easier. I'm going to remove that bit. We'll deal with these little bits shortly. Okay, so we'll just bring them two layers back in. The other thing I'm going to do again is click on the base layer, so we'll remove them again. I'm just going to smooth this water out, and the way I'm going to do that is, there's two ways I can do it. I can use the this tool here, which is the blur tool, and I'm just gonna paint the blur, just blur it out as if it's had a longer exposure than what it actually was by blurring it slightly. And I think that will just help with the image when we multiply them all together. Okay, we've done that, so let's put these layers back on. I think I'm just going to be a bit more, do a bit more painting over here. Probably drop the opacity down really quite low to about 15ish. We'll just bring that in there. So we're getting a little bit of reflection, a little bit of detail, but we've also got that sky reflection and then that water looking. And I'm really pleased with that. Really pleased with that part of the process. Right, excuse me for a minute because I'm going to see what the dog's doing. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll introduce you to the dog. Roll! Oh, this is the grand puppy, Ralph. Hey, you mate. He's like a little Chewbacca. He's a good lad, actually. Good lad. Good lad. Okay, I'm going to keep him in here to keep me on him, even though he's good. No, you're not doing any editing. Go on down then. Go on, go on. Oh, you stop here. Okay, where was we? Where was we? Okay, so let's deal with the awkward stuff. I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with that image. So let's start getting rid of these areas. Let's do that area first. I'll tell you what, we'll start from the back of the image. We'll work on this little bit here. And we'll get rid of that, hopefully. So if we click on this layer mask, select a brush tool, drop it down, we'll need 100% opacity and we're going to get rid of that area there. So we'll go as close as we can, and then what I'll do is I want a new brush, want it fully hard so we can draw a nice straight line. So if we click at the top there, hold the shift key down, click bottom, and that'll draw a nice straight line there. All we need to do with that is where are we? If we now drop the opacity down and just blend that back in, if we go, we want to drop that hardness down so it's nice and feathered and blends in really nice. What I'll do is when I do merge the layers, I will actually just soften things up again around these edges. So it's a little bit sort of funky down there, but at least we know what we're working with there. So if we go into these other areas, we can process these now. So again, we'll go into the, click the layer mask in the sky, because we put the sky in. I'm just doing this by hand. Again, we can, if we go right up to the edge, click the bottom, hold the shift down, click the top, it will keep painting. We can do it the same to the other side, so click the top, click where I want to come to the bottom, keep painting, and I'll draw a straight line there just to help out. again, bottom here to the top, and we've just got to do the other little patches now and tidy one or two little bits up. So I will do that, and I will catch you again very shortly, because it will take me a good half an hour or so. Okay, so we spent half an hour removing some detail, and I'm almost ready, I think, or ready to merge these layers down. If we do want to go back, what we could do is duplicate the layers, each layer, just in case. So we can duplicate that layer but switch one off. We'll duplicate every layer that we're using, but switch one off, and duplicate that layer, switch one off, and then what we'll do, it will just merge down the visible. So if there's a process that we've missed and we think we need to go back, we can just use them other layers if we wanted to. And the reason why I've merged it down is because I do want to start removing some artifacts within there as well, and start a little bit of clothing and make it just more refined. But the image is getting there. But the first thing I want to do with the image is actually straighten it up, because the image is slightly warped. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to transform, and this is another reason why I wanted to compress them layers into one, to transform the lot. So if we go to transform and warp, what I'm going to try and do is bring the building, get that building more straight there. And we want this part of the building straighter at the back, somewhere there. We'll enter that. That looks a lot better already. That looks a lot better already. I'll just show you before and after. So if we undo warp and then redo warp, and there you go. It's just straighten that image up just slightly, just tweaked it slightly. So all I'm going to do now is start removing some of the things that I don't really like, and try and blend it in a little bit better. So I'm going to pick the spot heel tool. We'll just remove some areas that, if we remove them, they normally start to blend in a little bit better. And then what we're going to do is we'll just remove some of the odd dirty bit on the there. We'll chain that. Okay, so not too much. That's pretty much that done. What I'm going to do now is just a little bit of a dodge and burn, but I'm going to save this layer first. Now I've got Easy Panel from I think his name's McIntyre. It's a free Easy Panel that you can download, and in that there is a dodge and burn, but I won't use that. I'll use as normal dodge and burn tools, which is over here. So burn, put it onto about 9%, because it can be quite aggressive. We are doing the highlights, so we want to drop that down to, we're going to do the shadows. We're just going to bring these shadows out a little bit. these little areas here, give it a little bit more contrast in the shadow areas. Just paint that in there. Okay. We'll crop the image just slightly, like so. Save that, and then I think what we'll do now is we'll do the rest of the finishing touches in Photoshop. Okay, so we've got the image back into Lightroom, sorry. So that's the before, and that's the after image. So all I'm going to do now is do some light adjustments, whether we want to brighten it up just slightly, bring them shadows out down a little bit. Do we want the whites up? Not quite like that. Do we want the blacks up or down? I want it quite a soft feel, so maybe we could even drop the DAs slightly. That's starting to look nice. Probably put exposure back up there. We can I'm just going to do a little bit of sort of, again, a bit more dodge and burn. So if I select a brush tool, and I'm just going to do one or two areas that I think are just a little bit too dark. We'll just brighten that area up there. And what I'm just going to paint a little vignette in, I think. Quite big, so let's just zoom out and then just put it quite a large vignette in there. And all that I'll do is highlight the beach huts there, so not too much. I like that little bit of texture in the sky. I think it looks really nice, and to bring the texture more out in the beach huts there, sorry, a brush tool, and we are gonna put a bit of detail in the huts just to really make them snappy and sharp. And it will sort of up the saturation as well, which will really make them pop out. Probably we've got a little bit of a light area here. I'm just going to try and darken that up, I think, if I can, but gently do so. Just darken that area up there. Maybe if we drop the whites on that, it would help a bit. We're not doing too much. Just a little bit there. Actually, I think I'm going to crop that. I'll just crop that out. Just going to crop it there. That's it. That's better. What I love the colours in these beach huts, and maybe if we wanted to bring them out, we could up the saturation with a brush, and we can just even bring them out even more so, which does look nice. I love the colours. Yeah, that works quite well actually. Love them colours. That really does bring it out. You know, we obviously go crazy, but we don't want to do that. So just saturation up a little bit, and obviously we can make a black and white image if we wanted to. Let's just put it back to colour. I prefer the colour myself. Black and white. I think if we were going black and white, I would just up the contrast. But I like that coloured effect. I like the colour feel. Again, you know, if it's a little bit, if we think it's a bit too bright, we can drop the exposure slightly if we wanted to. Again, that's just a personal preference. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that one. It's quite a difficult process. There is a little bit more tweaking that needs doing that I can see, but that's the main gist of the image. But compared to before and after, it's pretty amazing. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.